We're going to talk about high performing teams and why they will give you a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Any questions, chuck them in the chat. We'll pick them up as we go through or towards the end. Who am I to talk about this kind of thing? Well, I'm the Deputy Chair of the Institute of Leadership and Management. I'm a non-exec director of Swim Wales. I've been a coach and a relationship manager on the AGP programme for many, many years. And I run 3 or 4 businesses as a non-exec director, or as a director, or as an owner. And I've been in business, well, as senior positions director or managing director for over 20 odd years. I've just become a school governor in Cardiff here, and I'm based in Cardiff. And if basically there was something you'd want to say about me, it's basically I help businesses and people and business owners improves the way they do what they do. So whether it's human accountability expert or whether it's about transformation, that's been my job and what I've done for the last X amount of years. But let's talk about what the agenda today. We're going to talk about different types of performance, functions and dysfunctions of a team, common traits of resilient teams, the current situation, and how to become more a high performing team. Okay, so we're going to just talk around it a little bit with some theory, and then we'll go into the practical aspects of what you can do to increase your performance of your team. By the end of the session, I'm hopeful that you'll understand what's required for high performance teams. You'll understand where your team is at the moment. There's something called the forming, storming, norming and performing scale, which is Tuckerman. You'll understand where your business is at, and then what you can do as a leader to improve your team's performance. Okay, so that's what I'm hoping you'll have by the end of the session. So let's start. There are 2 types of performance. Now, many of you will be aware of the first one. I've got some tasks to do. I've got some jobs to do. I'm going to tick them off. So the performance, the tactical performance, your team are probably very good at. You might have your good weeks and your bad weeks, but predominantly, if you're in business and you're growing and you're being successful, you will be able to tactically implement a plan. You must have a plan, and you'll be ticking it off. You'll be doing this week, this week, this week. You'll be ticking it all off. The second part of particularly of high performance, is the ability to be adaptive, the ability to diverge from the plan when all hell is breaking loose. That ability is something that will make a team's performance elevate. It's something that will help a team to become high performing. And obviously, we're going to talk about the current situation coming up. But at the moment, the ability to diverge from the plan is key when we're in such uncertain times. So 2 things that go into making performance: tactical and adaptive. Now, high performing teams have 4 common traits. Okay, and in effect, the adaptive piece is part 3 there, the ability to improvise. But there are also 3 other traits. So we have a coming together as a team. So we're in this together, we're up against it together, we work as one. That whole coming together piece is really important. They also have one common way of working together. So whether that be a process you use, whether that be a set of guiding values and principles, whether it's the XYZ way, you have a common approach to being in business and to your teamwork. As I said, the ability to improvise and to adapt is the third. And then fourthly, the one that actually lots of businesses don't spend a lot of time on, but if it's not there, causes a big problem. And that's feeling safe. That's feeling psychological safety in the workplace. You trust your colleagues. They've got your back. You've got their back. That whole feeling of safety underpins the common traits of good, solid, high-performing and resilient teams. So why would those things be important? And let's go through them a little bit at the moment. So having one way of working and coming together as one team sits all around this idea of why we do what we do. So one of the first things to get your team working together as one team is they need to be aligned. And also getting them working in a certain way, they need to understand what that way is. So why do we do what we do? What's our purpose will help align them. How we do what we do, they're your behaviours, they're your ways, they're your guiding principles. You need those. And then what you do is what you need to do to be successful is that whole adaptive and tactical approach. So starting with getting your team, does everybody in your team understand these three things? Do they understand why you do what you do? That's most important. Do they know how you behave and what and how they should behave and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? And then finally, how you become to do what you do, how you become successful. So understanding these values, the how you do what you do, builds and affirms a shared team approach. And so to do that, you need to find each other's values and you need to share those values as a business. And you need to go for depth. So this is a process of getting to know somebody, like somebody, and trust somebody. And you have to take them from being unfamiliar. Think of a new recruit in your organization. You'll have some people that are not familiar with the organization. They have to then become familiar. They have to get to know each other, become intimate in a professional capacity, and then they have to have a meaningful relationship with the organization. Now, you can do that in 3 minutes, 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 hours, 3 years. Time is not of the essence here. What is of the essence is you have to find those shared values. You have to understand how people behave and how you want to connect within those behaviors. And you could do that in a number of different ways. One of the ways you could do that is by understanding how you solve problems. And high performing teams, as I said earlier, are able to adapt, they're able to improvise, and that's all around solving the problem. So encouraging finding shared values by solving problems together is a really good way of starting. You can also develop trust. So trust, here is a trust equation. This will change your life, actually. If you've not heard of this before, it's a psychological model. I didn't come up with it. It's been around for many years. But basically, think of somebody you really trust, okay? And that's what T stands for here. They're probably credible, they're probably reliable, and you've probably got a good professional, intimate relationship with them. You really get each other. You really understand each other. And they probably have quite a low self-orientation, which means they put you first before themselves, or the business before themselves. Now, conversely, think of somebody that the trust is just starting to wane. Maybe they haven't been as reliable lately. Maybe they haven't been as credible. Maybe they said something and it didn't turn out to be true. Or maybe you just haven't spent enough intimate, meaningful time with them. So actually you've just drifted apart a little bit. Or maybe they've started putting themselves in front of the business. That equation, if you monitor that with the relationships of your team weekly and monthly over a period of time, that equation will start showing you if somebody's trust is starting to ebb. And you can then do something about it by improving the credibility or improving reliability or improving the intimacy. So what we want to do is that psychological support comes from trust. And so people want to feel the love, security, and belonging of being supported and challenged. And you have to do that from a place of trust. So you have to make sure that this equation, this trust, is established within your teams, is established between your leadership and your teams for it to be able to open up a support and a challenge around feeling love, security, and belonging. And if that isn't there, you won't have a high-performing team because they'll be constantly looking over their shoulder. Team, let's just have a quick look at a dysfunctional team. Can I just have a thumbs up? Can you still hear me? Yeah, great, thank you. And can you still see a slide that says a dysfunctional team? Yeah, great, thank you. Fab, wonderful. So these are the 5 dysfunctions of a team. So we just looked at what makes a great team. I'm just going to bring us back to sort of see that the other side and say what actually makes a team that doesn't function. And as you can see, the absence of trust is the fundamental issue that means a team won't work together well. That creates a lack of conflict and a fear of conflict. So if you don't trust your colleague, okay, sat in the opposite office to you, then actually you're probably not going to try and challenge them, or you're probably not going to have a challenging conversation about maybe a way forward, because you might think they'll come and use that against you in the future. That fear of conflict then creates a lack of commitment, because if you've not been able to have a really good discussion about a way forward or a planned action, then actually you can say, well, I never agreed with it anyway. I mean, I know we talked about it in the meeting, but actually it wasn't ever going to be the success. Why wasn't it ever going to be the success? Why didn't you say something? Well, you were frightened. So it creates a lack of commitment. That lack of commitment gives the ability for people to avoid accountability. Well, I never said it was going to work anyway. And actually, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then that all breeds an inattention to results. Because if you're worried about watching your backside, or you're disagreeing with a way forward, or you're saying, well, I didn't think it would work anyway, then you're actually not thinking about the results. So those areas there are the 5 areas that teams that aren't functioning correctly may have happening to them. So if you think about your team at the moment, are you all thinking of one result? Are you all committed? Do you commit to the decisions? Are you accountable to each other? Do you focus on the achievements? Do you have unfiltered debates? Do you have trust? So do you have trust? Do you have debates? Do you have commitment? Do you have accountability? Do you focus on the achievements? So that's what we want you and your teams to be able to do. Building on the trust, have unfiltered debates, be able to commit to your decisions and all be pulling in the same direction, hold each other accountable, and focus on the achievements of results. So this is just a holding slide for me to get ready for the next section. But basically, we know it's not in theory. We know you have to deliver these things. So how are you going to deliver a team that trusts each other, debates very well, is committed, has accountability, and is focused on the results? Let's just focus on what's going on at the moment. We're definitely in what we call a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguity time, and a time full of ambiguity, should I say. So VUCA is the current situation we're all in. You're probably finding that in lots of different ways in your business, whether it might be uncertainty over supply chain, whether it's complexity over how you sell your products, whether it's a volatility of where the orders are coming from, and whether, you know, one week you got lots of orders in, the next week you haven't got anything. We know that there's a lot of uncertainty happening in the workplace. And when that's your teams are focused in a number of safety and areas. They're not focused on self-esteem and status and repetition and strength and freedom. They're probably focused on personal security, resources, health, and those kind of things. They're probably focused on food and shelter, and where the next meal is, are they keeping their jobs? Is everything going to be okay? Now, if you're focused in that area, that means you're not feeling safe. You're not feeling like you're trusting what's happening. So we need to help our team feel more safe, and we need to get our teams to start moving up this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so we need to get them start going up to the love and belonging area, or the self-esteem area. So we want to make sure that the safety needs are met as much as possible. Okay. So where is your team at the moment? Where is your team on this productivity and time axis? This is Tuckerman, and Tuckerman came up with this model actually back in the 1960s, but it still stands true today. So when you bring a team together, they get to a forming stage, okay? And forming is when they come together. It's very positive. Everybody's very polite. It might be the first time you're working on a project, or a new member of staff comes into the team. It's all about building relationships. It's very exciting. But quite soon afterwards, they go into the storming stage, which is actually quite a difficult and dangerous place to be in. It's quite negative. There's some aspects of people vying for roles and responsibilities. You might have seen this in teams you've been in, where it's been going along quite nicely for a bit of time. Then all of a sudden, person A decides they're going to take a bit of responsibility, and person B doesn't like that then. And people start pushing boundaries, and there's a bit of conflict. People start questioning what's going on, and things can fall apart in the storming stage. But actually, and we want to move through that into what we call the norming stage. And that's where people start getting buy-in, developing trust, having better cohesion, and working together despite their differences. And if you've got a team at the moment, this is maybe where they are, okay? But what you really want them to be in is you want them to be in the performing stage. And this is where the team excels, and they put the team need in front of their own, and they share their focus on shared resources, and they're all looking at the end result. So if we look at understanding Tuckerman, we can actually understand where we sit. If we look at making our team more effective, we've got some noise coming in. Let me just, thank you very much for muting. That's great. Thank you. If we just have a look at where we think we are on that, if you think about your business, if you think about your team, are you forming at the moment? Are you storming? Are things not quite going where they need to be? Are you actually fine? The team is actually performing quite well, but we need it to perform better. It doesn't matter where you are. It's about understanding that, because the more that you understand that, the more then you can develop the right changes. So let me give you some more information about these steps. So forming. So in the forming stage, people are making an effort, okay? And it looks like, so if you thinking about your team, there might be some confusion, there might be some low morale, there might be some hidden feelings, there might be some unclear objectives, poor listening skills between each other, people maybe not speaking up very much in meetings. So at this point, if you want to move them out of this stage, you want to increase your communication, set some clear goals, and get to know each other. So in the forming stage, if you've got a brand new team, the best thing you can do is do some team building exercises, go out for food and drink, have a nice shared event together, do something in the office together, work on a project together. It's all about getting to know each other. In the storming stage, as I said, this is about conflict and it's about pushing of boundaries. So it will mean that people are trying to control things. There's somebody over this side is trying to do X while somebody over the other side is trying to do Y. There could be some inconsistency and a lack of cohesion, and there might be a resistance in the team to work with other people's ideas. So if you ever see somebody trying to stop somebody else's idea from happening, it could be a sign that you're in this storming phase. Now, what you need to do here is you need to clarify the goals of the individuals, get them to understand what collaboration means, get them to focus on the tasks of the results that you want, get them to develop a model of teamwork. You could create a team charter, for example, or you could come up with some guidelines of how often you've got to respond to emails, or if you've got an issue with that. But it'll all be about increasing each other's understanding and also increasing communication. Then we want to go to the norming stage. So this is about resolving differences. At this point, normally some status quo has come into the piece, but that could mean if things are moving quite nicely, that there's an avoidance of risk. There's an anticipation of things being broken up. And so you want to make sure that you move out of the norming stage if you want to focus on high performance. So this is about focusing on what's made you successful so far and recognizing people's strengths. It's all about quick wins. How can you talk to individuals about how to replicate that success they've had in systems and in processes so that you can develop more of the same? So getting them to acknowledge and to see and to understand what they've been great at so far will help push you into the next stage. So let's look at what performing looks like. So performing is basically having a focus on that shared goal, being able to be in the performing stage without feeling pressure. So sometimes you can move back into norming because the pressure becomes too much. So in this instance, what you want to be looking at to keep your team in a performing area is leadership, process refinement, and delegation. So they're not going to be able to keep the pressure on themselves as a high-performing team for so long. So you have to elevate and delegate. And that's all about refining the processes and having some leadership. So I'm just going to remind you and ask you the question, where are you now? Which stage are you in? Are you in a forming, storming, norming, or performing stage? A bit of a reminder, great teams, high-performing teams have good commitment, they understand their work, they've got open communication, they trust each other, they have an ability to generate and share ideas and be adaptive and improvising solutions, and they can have constructive criticism and share lessons between themselves. So let's just move on. How do we actually improve these things? Well, you've got to look at 3 areas. You've got to look at skills, which is your problem solving, your interpersonal skills, your technical and functional skills. You've got to look at the accountability. So how do you get that within individuals? How do you get that within teams? How do you understand each other mutually? And so you've got mutual accountability. And then you need commitment to the goals. So you need clarity around the goals, you need the common purpose, and you need meaningful purpose. So if we move forward to next steps then, how do you increase these changes? So how do you move from one section to the next? So to move from forming to storming, you need to set clear objectives, you need to get to know each other, you need to spend time with each other, and you need to develop a team charter of some nature. You need to have one way of working together. If you're in the storming phase and you want to get to the norming phase, you have to build trust. You have to improve your social connections within the group. You have to be able to ask each other for help. You have to understand what each other can do for each other. You need to remove and you need to check for any team conflicts. So in the storming to norming, it's about building trust, improving connections, helping each other, and removing any conflict. So being able to understand how you remove conflict will be important. And then if you're in the norming stage and you want to get to the performing stage, it's about understanding the success you've had, how you've got that success, and then doing some quick wins to get more traction, to get more success. So that is much more of a reviewing. We've done really well in these 5 areas. Let's keep doing more of that because we know that's going to give us more success. So those are some tactics to move from one section to the next. How do you and then just finally, how can you sort of do something about this today? Well, first of all, you can work on yourself as a leader, and then you can do this exercise with your colleagues. So what am I good at? How do I work? What do I value? And how can I contribute? Okay, so if you understand that about yourself and focus on those things and focus on telling your team those things and focus on getting those things from your team, you'll get much more of a shared value. You'll understand each other more, and that'll help develop the dynamics of a team. You can then also do that with your teams. Spend time with your team. Get your team to ask themselves these questions and get the team to talk to each other about where they see each other contributes to a project. You know, what is John in accountancy good at? What is Cheryl in marketing fantastic at? And actually, what's John's main value? You know, how does John work? In fact, actually, John really likes working with dynamic teams. He likes chatting about ideas. He likes solving problems. Fantastic. We've got a problem. Let's get John on the project because John will be really good at that. And then spending time with that team, you could develop a team charter, because that is a really good way of just getting everybody talking about what's important to them. What's the model of working? How are you going to be adaptive? How do you want to feel safe? If your team behave in a certain way, how do you want them to work for you? So some ideas there of how you can improve your team process really quickly from what we've just said earlier. So I'm going to just ask if there are any questions now before we move on slightly. Let's see, well, I'm saying move on. We're sort of at the end there. Let me just put the video back on and see if anybody's got any questions. So I rattled through there, lots of different things. Questions from people. No, it's not working.
So it's going back a little bit, but I really liked that trust equation.
Yes.
I was interested though with that. It's what, C plus R plus I, and then divided by self-orientation.
Yes.
I mean, if you had to put a number on it, sort of thing, how do you divide?
Yeah, so I actually do put a number on it. So I do this with my team once a month. You could do it both ways as well, by the way. So you can do it. Am I trusted by my team? So am I credible? Am I reliable? Do I have the right relationship with them? And do I put them before myself? And or the other way around. So is my team credible with me? Are they reliable to me, etc., etc.? So I actually do it out of 10. So if you are they credible? Well, actually, yeah, they said these 3 things. And when I looked into them, they were really good at pieces of advice. Yeah, I'd give that a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. Same with reliability, same with intimacy. The self-orientation is the opposite way around. So did they put themselves in front of the business? No, not really. They put the business first. That'll be a low number. So if you then have 10, 10, 10 divided by 2, so that's 30 divided by 2, your number would be 15.
That's brilliant.
It's a bit immaterial, the number. What you're looking for is the changes in that number over time.
Yes.
So you do that weekly or monthly, and then you'd see, oh, actually, something's gone wrong. Their intimacy number's gone down this month. What's been happening? Why I haven't spent any time with them? I mean, this was part of a problem with, we've got a bit of background noise there, Sean, if you don't mind muting for me in a second. That's okay. So you've got, we did this over COVID, if you think about it. We didn't spend a lot of time with people because we weren't allowed. And so actually our trust factor as a society went down quite dramatically over that time because we just weren't spending time with people and we had nothing to say to anybody. You'd ring up your friends, wouldn't you, and your colleagues, what have you done this week? Well, I watched Netflix. What did you watch? Well, same thing as last week. Got nothing else to watch now. We didn't do anything, did we? We could only go for our walks, or there wasn't a lot to say. So our relationships deteriorated quite a lot during COVID. So that's how I don't know if that answers your question, Sean, but that's how I use trust equation.
Answers the question. Honestly, that was fantastic. Yeah. Thank you.
Great, good. It will change the way you view people that you have in your life. Honestly, do this with your teams. Do this with your friends and family and colleagues. It will really make a difference to them.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Any other comments? Any other questions about any practical bits of advice about what you're going to do next? Okay. Does everybody know where their teams are in terms of norming, storming, forming?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that we're still in forming, to be honest. Either that or we've breezed past the storming part of things.
Right.
So is there a way of like figuring out if we've managed to get past the storming and got to the norming? Well,
let's chat about it. How long has the team been working together?
So the team as it is at the moment, so 3 out of the 4 people have been working together for 2.5 years, and 1 team member has been with us for a year.
Okay, so you could be that's probably a long time for forming. I think you might be more in the norming stage, but let's just have a quick look at do people have clear objectives? Do you have committed and involved members? Do you have poor listening going on?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. No. We've got a very clear objective. I love OKRs,
brilliant.
Objectives, key results, and everyone else is on board with it as well.
Fine. So it's probably that you're in the norming stage then, that you've got that you've probably, if you've got clarity. And how would you rate your trust of each other? How would you rate your ability to work together as one team?
That is something that I would have to do. I don't know. I couldn't put a number on it at the moment. Pretty trustworthy. But I need to actually ask them. Yeah.
Okay. So I would suggest you're potentially in the norming stage, which is that you've been working together some time. You're quite clear on what you're trying to do. But actually it's about increasing your success and focusing on the achievements. So understanding and recognizing, as I said, each of the strengths, understanding which part you play within the team, clarity of responsibility, not necessarily, John's the accountant, so anything to do with numbers we go to John about, but actually John's really great at seeing the longer term picture. So within the project, actually, it's great at numbers, but also if we want to think long term, let's ask John to think about the problem because he'll give us a different perspective. So don't just do it based on the role somebody's got. Also do it on some of their strengths and some of the ways that they think. It'll give you much more of a dynamic team by focusing on those things. And conversely, if you've got somebody that's always optimistic and very, very optimistic, and you're doing something which is a new project that might have a few risks in it, they might not be the best person to look at a risk register because they won't be seeing the risks maybe as others in your team will see them. They might be over optimistic. So understanding that with regards to high performance it is really about understanding the individuals and where they sit within their strengths and their roles and their responsibilities, and being able to utilize that and then replicate that all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's any other questions? Let me go back to the list of things we said we'd talk about today. So, does everybody understand what's required for high performance teams? What area do you think you're going to work on? What stage do you think you're currently at? So Nicola, where are your team at the moment in terms of the Tuckerman?
We've got quite a mixed bag, to be honest. We've I'd say that our sales team is more on the foreman stage. We've got quite a lot of new starters. The operations side, we've worked on for the last probably year and a bit, really, I suppose. First of all, because when I first came here, there were minimal managers. There's quite a lot. We've got 120 people in our team in total, mixture of hybrid and overseas plus UK based. And so I guess we've got a fairly new board. So the board of directors, which I'm part of, we're working quite hard on some of this type of things at the minute. So we're kind of more at a bit of storming into the norming, I would say, on the board of director side. The managers are in a good place. A lot of them are performing. Some of them are still at the norming stage. On the sales side, we've got a mixture of forming, well, all of them, if I'm honest, because there is a mixture of new starters, established people, and even with the established ones that have been here for 7-8 years, it causes a bit of conflict, doesn't it, when new business people come in and quite driven account managers, etc. So,
the team will go back to forming and storming. Absolutely, and new dynamics coming in all the time will change that perspective. So and Nicola, it's great that you're saying that we've got different things in different teams. One of the places I would start, if you want to be proactive about this, is the alignment of the whole business. Is the business completely aligned behind that sort of vision of the future, the why we do what we do, the way that we behave, and the what we're going to do to be successful? If you can get every person clear and aligned behind that, that will go quite a long way to bringing people together. And then you're absolutely right, being proactive, understanding this team needs to go through this process, this team needs to go with this process. As the leader of teams, you can work with those head of departments, or whatever you call them, managers, or leaders anyway, they're leaders. You can work with them individually and say, look, from your team, I want this. And constantly, you're absolutely right, you can't just treat each team as the same. It is about making sure, the company as a whole needs to be aligned, but once you've done that, then you need to work on each individual team to move them through to the next phase as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And it is about being conscious of that and actually setting yourself that sort of activity in a conscious way, being a conscious leader around that.
And we're doing that at board level as well. We've recently written the strategy and it's already changed, so because we've had a new board member, etc. And so it's, at every level, we're kind of looking at this type of thing, which is why I joined, really, to be honest, why I jumped on, because it's just a moving piece every week.
Well, the one thing I would say about that then, Nicola, if I may, because I'm the non-exec director of a number of boards, I'm the chair of a few other boards, I spend a lot of time with boards, and it's about making sure your board are working at the right level. All your teams need to work at the right level, but in effect, what we need to do is elevate and delegate the whole time. And if your board has written a strategy, let's say, I'm going to make time up, but 2 weeks ago, and then already within 2 weeks it's changed, the strategy was not at the right level.
It was mainly because a project came along that we didn't know was on the horizon, and it's which is really positive, but it's kind of changed our strategy a little bit. So we're rewriting, and luckily we weren't at the stage where we'd cascaded down to the team, really, to the managers and to the rest of the wider team, which is good. So we worked with all the values, etc. But it's just part of the strategy. It's been added to more than anything else. But
okay, that's fine. And so the point I was going to make was that if you are changing, so you said changing, but if you're adding to, that's maybe just you've taken an opportunity to get you to your end goal. That's fine. That's not changing a strategy. That's what I picked up on the word changing. But if it's just an addition to or a way of getting you to your end goal quicker, smarter, faster, more efficiently, then that's fine, because you're focusing on the end goal and where you want to be in what it might be 12 months, 5 years, whatever it needs, whatever the timescale is you've set.
Yeah.
If it is a change of strategy, then that indicates to me that the strategy is not at the right level. Because actually that strategy should be as a visionary strategy, just a little bit out of reach, but somewhere you're going to end up if you put X, Y, and Z in place. So the X, Y, and Z might be the how you do it, whether it's OKRs, whatever sort of goals and objective operating system you use. That's fine at that level for your operating team to change the way they're going to get. So imagine this: we're going to London. So our strategy is we're going to London. Now, actually, if I say at a board level, we're going to London, we're going down the M4, and we're going to be there on Saturday, and then we're setting off on Friday. Between now and Friday, something could come along that puts a barrier down the M4, which means we can't go down the M4. Now, that means if I've told my team that detail, we're going down the M4, we're going to London, we're going on Friday, and it gets to Friday and I can't go down the M4, then I've got to put that team through change. I've got to force them to change something. Whereas actually, as a board director, as somebody who's steering the ship or driving the bus, whatever analogy you want to say, if I'd said, actually, we're going to London on Friday, and that's what I said, actually, when it got to Friday and we realised we couldn't go down the M4, it wouldn't be a change. It would be, all right, we just have to go via Reading or via Swindon because there's a block on the M4. Now, I know that sounds a little, I'm being picky, but actually it's much easier to manage a team that feel they've got some control over how they're going to do something than it is by telling them what to do and then having to change it, because then all they remember is, oh, well, there's a plan and we've changed it already. All they're thinking about is the negativity surrounding change rather than the fact that you're just still going to your end goal. You want to focus them on the end goal constantly, not the bit in the middle that changes. Does that make sense, Nicola?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So I'm always talking to my boards about, no, level up your conversation, Don't talk to them. I've got a particular client at the moment that literally is telling their team, do this, and we'll get there. I keep saying, stop. Your team have got this ability. You wouldn't have employed your team if they couldn't have done the job. So they've obviously got the ability to make these decisions, to make these activities, to do these tactics, to get this stuff done. So why are you telling them what to do? Let them do it. Let them have some control. Let them show off. Let them give you their best work. All you need to focus on is the end point and keep reminding them about that end point. And that, as leaders, we have to be that visionary, the chief believer or the chief visionary, whatever you want to call it. We are the ones that have to influence them and do it that way. Four crosses, is it called? Yeah. What about yourself, Steve? What about your teams? Have you got mixed teams? Have you got one team you're thinking of in this discussion today?
So we're very, very much similar to the last one, really. We've got established staff who've been here for 13 years, Ian, so he knows his job. We've got forming at the minute because this is coming into our busy time of the year. So we have a lot of agency staff that come in.
Yes, that's interesting dynamic. Yeah. So like now, obviously, our four most experienced people are currently sat in this office listening to this, and I keep looking out and seeing agency staff walking around, and it worries me a little bit. But we're at that forming stage where they've only been here a few weeks. So hopefully we can learn a bit from this to get everybody performing. Sooner rather than later. Yeah. So if you've only got a set amount of time, particularly with agents, that's really interesting, isn't it? With that agency dynamic, means you're constantly forming. That actually is really interesting. You should get really good at being able to go from forming to norming without trying to get in you want to get out of that storming bit. But actually, there are some things you can really do proactively, really quickly. In that, can you create? I know it might be too much for you guys. You might not be this kind of company, but what team games can you create? What fun can you have? How can you demonstrate team dynamics and team development and team building quickly? It could be just setting out a charter. It could just be having a team night out. It could just be having some of your old team buddying up and being, mentors or angels with the people that are coming in terms of agency workers. There might be too many of them, but you have to dynamically do something. And if you can get this right this time, create it into a process, then next time that becomes quicker and faster, and you'll get more used to doing this with your agency staff. So yeah, definitely be proactive with setting some activities up for this team to get to know each other. Yeah. How can you, I was watching a TV program last night and they had a team talent show. I'm not suggesting you'd want to do that, but that's a bit of fun. Maybe get some pizzas and a bit of beer in on a Friday afternoon and have the Four Crosses talent show or something. A bit silly, but it does need to be a little bit like that when you've not got a lot of time, because you want people to want to come and share themselves and develop their values and to get to know each other. That's what you've got to try and do really quickly. Yeah,
we obviously, like you say, some of us have been here for so long, because you can have up to 12 agency staff come and go over this sort of period of time. A lot of people find it difficult to engage because they might only be here for a few days or a few weeks. And what we tend to do is we usually take on up to probably 4 people at the end of their sort of 3 to 6 month basis. So it's quite tricky to get to know someone who's only going to be here for a short period of time. And then, like I say, a lot of people just get bored of getting to know new people.
So I get that. So okay, that's really interesting as a dynamic, isn't it? Because you think always to get of the agency person maybe not wanting to get to know people because they're a bit nervous about being in the new company. But actually, you're right. If you've done this time and time again, you might be getting a bit tired of it. Well, there needs to be some understanding from those individuals that have been there long standing that this is a way to get people to work better together as a team, and for the success of the team, they do need to understand how to get to know each other time and time again. And it might be that it's a level of depth of getting to know each other that maybe doesn't have to be as deep and meaningful. But the problem that you've got then is that the trust won't be there. People do need to trust each other, and that trust piece, if you've been there a long time, you can trust each other really well because you know each other really well. But it's probably harder for those people to trust agency staff and vice versa if they don't know each other. So unfortunately, I think understanding that is something important for your long-standing team. I think you'd have to work on that a little bit. As tough as it might be. I know, as tough as it might be. Yeah, exactly. It's tricky. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And who else have we got on the line? So there's another lady there. I can't read it. I haven't got my glasses on. I'm so sorry. Mrs. Griffiths, is it? Is it? I can't read that. I can't read that lady's name. I'm so sorry. It's not there. I can't read the name. I haven't got my glasses on. Lisa, who's on the call?
I think she's on as Ivion Griffiths, but I don't think that's Ivion. So it's from Melyn Trigwynt.
Yeah, hi, sorry. Ivion's in a second meeting today, so I'm kind of, I'm standing in.
No problem. What about your teams? Where do you think your teams are?
I think, we're going through transition at the moment into an employee ownership trust. So for us, it's all the dynamics in the business have changed. So I think the management team are sound, the directors team is coming together, but I think we've got some personnel changes which we're going to have to manage in other areas of the business. So this is quite interesting because we're about to advertise a job, and it's quite nice to get an idea of what makes a good team, because I think the person we're advertising for has got a bit of a dysfunctional team that they're going to have to try and pull together. So finding this very, very helpful.
Yeah, the 5 dysfunctions of a team as a book, by the way, if you're interested in team dynamics, is really great. It's by a gentleman called Patrick Lancioni. He wrote 2 books I recommend to everybody, and I'll just put my camera on if it will give me the screen for a minute without me going mad. Let's have a look. There you go. So 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. That's that book, Patrick Lancioni. Get it on Amazon. It's really, really good. And then the other one is The Advantage. Okay. That's a combination of all his 4 books. So Patrick Lancioni, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's a great model, and it really, really helps you to see where your team might be falling down. So if you think about that, is it that they don't trust each other? What's happened to make that trust not be there? Is it actually that there's maybe some trust there, but not enough? So that means they've not got good conflict. They've got artificial harmony, and that leads to the lack of accountability, lack of commitment, and the inattention to results. So it's going to be around trust, but you've got to figure out how that person's going to be able to build that really quickly. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? If not, I mean, I'm absolutely happy to take any emails. My details are on the slides that you'll be getting. So if you've got any questions or you want to, I've got my at the beginning again now, but if you've got any questions or you want to just run through anything like this, then please just send me an email. I'd be more than happy to answer it for you. Look, the video's gone again. Lisa, I'll send you the slides so you can send these around to everybody as well.
That's great. Thanks, Nicola. Thanks to everyone. There's a lot of information to start off your week on a Monday morning. So if anybody wants, we have recorded this morning. So I know we've had a couple that have joined us late. So I'll make sure that those recordings get sent out. If anybody wants the recording as well as the slides, can you just pop that into the chat for me now so that I can arrange that? It usually takes about 24 hours for the recording to come back from editing, but as soon as it is, I'll get those out and I'll send Nicola's slides out to you as well. But can I just ask that you do sign your AG3s and send them back to me as soon as you can, please? That would be great. So thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Thanks, Nicola, for giving up your time, and hopefully we'll see you on another webinar soon, and enjoy the rest of your weeks. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Lovely to meet you all. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.